Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to Synchronicity University. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. And this video is part of the Moon in the Astrology Chart series. This video is the Moon in Scorpio or Moon in the 8th house. Now, the two are not mutually exclusive. The two are not exactly the same thing. And so if you have the Moon in Scorpio, but not in the 8th house, you will relate to some of the 8th house themes, but you are going to want to watch the video specifically aimed at wherever the moon is in your chart based on house for a more complete picture of how you experience and the opportunities presented by that moon, and vice versa, of course, as well. If you have the moon in the 8th house, but not in the sign of Scorpio, do be sure to watch the video that has to do with the moon in your sign for a more complete picture, to synthesize that information and to tap into the power of your moon. And the moon is about emotional fulfillment. We need to honor our moon. We must honor our moon in order to do anything in the world. It is from a strong moon, from honoring our moon, that we're then able to go out in the world and do so much more, experience higher levels of success, experience a greater sense of self-fulfillment, experience a true sense of honoring our calling and living our purpose. Really, the moon is fundamental in that. And so the moon in Scorpio has to do with the power of the emotion. And that's really what it comes down to. The moon in Scorpio is a very, very potent emotional charge and emotional energy at that. Now, Scorpio is the sign of the law of attraction. It's the sign of the occult. It's the sign of aligning energy with what you want, and then through the force and power of emotion, manifesting it in the physical realm. So again, that can go all the way from occult practices right to, in our present day, the law of attraction that we talk about as well. But this has to do with being mindful of how you're using your emotional energy, but also taking responsibility for the energy you bring to any given space. Now, one of the lessons of Scorpio energy has to do with being mindful of the how your own emotional, whether you want to call it baggage, whether you want to call it experiences, your past, but how it is that your own hurts and experiences and fears have colored what you are perceiving. And so there's a real need for those with the moon in Scorpio to very actively tap into the higher end of that vibration. Because a moon in Scorpio type has a tremendous amount of power, can do amazing things in the world. However, they really need to have that understanding of where it is that their perception may be a little bit not accurate, because they're seeing things based on the wounds and the hurts that are buried deep within them. Now, that's why, because these signs, people of the moon in Scorpio know that life is change. That's the sign, is a sign of the life, death, rebirth cycle. It's a sign of the phoenix rising from the ashes, a sign of a snake shedding dead skin. So they know on a very deep level that life is constantly being renewed, that all things change. And so when they see something that looks like it's not changing or looks kind of steady, they get suspicious, right? So this sign is like sort of notoriously aligned with things like suspicion and jealousy. Well, I think that tends to be rooted in knowing that all things are not always as they seem, and knowing that things tend to be more complicated than they may necessarily appear on the surface. So there's that real desire to understand more deeply and to consider that what is on the surface might just be the very tip of the iceberg of what may lie underneath. Now, because of this, as I said, they have a tremendous ability to manifest. They can focus their emotional energy to manifest just about anything that they want. However, it does take a level of self-knowledge so that they're not instead going in the direction of the emotional charge that Scorpio energy can bring. So, you know, there's a little bit of a high that comes from participating in behaviors that create extreme emotional ups and downs. There's a certain addictive quality that drama can bring. Moon and Scorpio types have a real need to understand themselves by aligning themselves truly deeply and sharing very deeply to the level of vulnerability with another person. And that can also be a scary prospect, because if you think about it, it is about merging with another so that you almost lose yourself, or you could lose yourself. And that tends to be a scary prospect all around, but especially to the Scorpio that has to ask themselves, Moon and Scorpio types have to ask themselves, is this person worth it? Am I going to give myself completely just to have it blow up in my face? Because all might not be what it appears. But for all that, there's a real desire. I mean, they talk about possession, but it's also about sharing. Scorpio is an energy that's thought of as associated with possession. But there's also a real desire to share, to be vulnerable, to know another person, to be respected by another person, and to feel respected in return. But of course, emotions, drama can be really addictive. The fixed signs, more than others, have that propensity to be addicted to drama. I've actually found this, that the fixed signs are more prone to this because their signs tend to be very still, tend to be very straightforward, but life isn't necessarily like that. And all the fixed signs on some level, they know. And so because of that, they can create drama. And by creating that drama, they get a little high, a little secret satisfaction. But of course, that can end up working against them, against their stated intentions. This is ultimately about rebirth. Sign of Scorpio in particular is about rebirth. So Moon in the 8th house. Now, this is what's interesting to me about Moon in the 8th house types. The 8th house is one of change. That's what it says. The 8th house also has that connection to the occult with the law of attraction. But it is one that has to do with sharing, of course. It has to do with the real process that change asks for, which is ultimately one that is reflective, it is alchemical. It has to do with what's been called, I remember reading about Carl Jung. He talked about how life is a series of crisis, chaos, calm. So we're constantly on this circle from crisis, chaos, calm, crisis, chaos, calm. And so ultimately, the 8th house is exactly that. The 8th house knows that life represents crisis, chaos, calm. Now, the real skill with the 8th house is to tap into the higher end by minimizing the crisis and embracing the chaos in a way that is calm. Embracing the chaos in a way that utilizes it to your advantage by saying, okay, Moon in the 8th house types constantly need to feel like life is evolving, life is getting better. They need to, and are very good at, going through the processes of being really honest with themselves, of digging. That's why this part of the sky is associated with psychoanalysis, because it has to do with that process of looking at what's really going on under the surface, looking at what's really going on within, as part of re-emerging, renewed, and much more consciously chosen at that. And so I have found that people with strong 8th house placements, like the Moon in the 8th house, it tends to be hard to trust. It's hard to trust people. And so it tends to be that people with the Moon in the 8th house, they can sometimes, and I found this true also with people with the Moon or strong placements in the 12th, these are people who can go through periods of being single. They can go through periods of not having any kind of action taking place at all. And it ultimately is part of this like deeper understanding that all is not always very clear cut. And so they're going to focus their energies in other directions, and knowing that there's a real vulnerability and a real risk involved in caring about another person and giving to another person, the least of which not being that you could lose a lot. That's part of love, is the risk. You can end up losing something in terms of whether practically, you can lose a lot of money, right? This is part of life. You can lose money in love. You can lose parts of yourself, maybe parts of yourself that you like as a single person. But the thing is that ultimately we undertake these processes willingly because we believe that the sacrifice will garner us a greater reward, that who we are reborn through the process of trust will be somebody that we like even more than who we were before. And so that process can take some bravery, and there tend to be cycles that allow us to tap into that a little bit more than others might. But for all that, because of that ability, that thing that says, can I trust, can I trust? Because of that guiding question, it can make it difficult to trust. But once they do, that bond can run very, very deep and be very, very profound at that. You really want to be careful. I gotta say with these folks, you want to make sure that you are avoiding even the appearance of being unethical, okay? Even the appearance, even the superficial. You want to avoid that as a way of ensuring that you're tapping into the higher part of this vibration. And the higher energy of having Moon in the 8th house has to do with really knowing yourself enough to know that you are making choices based on what is true for you. And in that sense, people with Moon in the 8th house ensure that their life is truly one of their own decision and one of their own creation as well. There is a connection with the 8th house that has to do with finances, I will say. And so people with Moon in the 8th house can be very resourceful, very resourceful. And so when I see somebody with Moon in the 8th house, I say, you know how to get money. It's not necessarily always about earning the money. It is about knowing where to go to get the money. So whether it's grants or loans or bursaries or insurance payments or benefits or just asking the right relative, whatever the case may be, the universe in some way, or you know in some way on an emotional level, you need to know that the universe is abundant and that you are provided for and that people care for you and that people will support you emotionally and financially. And as a result, the universe does respond in kind and make you very, very adept at knowing just where to go when you need to get that money that you need for whatever it is that you desire. Well, thank you so much for watching. Please stay connected with me. Keep communicating with me. I absolutely love our interactions on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, nadiyashah.com, and the YouTube comments as well. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Truly so grateful for this moment with you. Until we connect again, take care. Thank you for watching this lesson as part of Synchronicity University. You can go online at synchronicityuniversity.com or click on your screen if you're on YouTube right now to access even more video lessons, to access horoscopes, interviews with some of the most amazing astrologers in the world, and so much more.